direct from the web, it's Billy Masters Live. And now, please welcome your host, Billy Masters.
Hey everyone, welcome to Billy Masters Live. I am, of course, your host, Billy Masters. Oh my God, all the guests are backstage. I see you all. Okay, thank you. And thank you, Eddie, my tech support. Speaking of tech support, where is the date, Monica? Oh, there it is. Thank you. Today is Thursday, August 27th. You know what? Today, I didn't even realize what the date was. So today is my grandmother's birthday. She's dead, but I mean, it's still her birthday. August 27th, she would be, if I'm not incorrect, 172. No, not 172. Give or take 70. Anyway, welcome to Billy Masters Live. It's a miserable day in Boston. I don't know what has happened, but we went from a heat wave to it's fall. So it's fall already. I've noticed for the last few days, the sun lower in the horizon and cold. Now, cold being, 70s, but nonetheless cold. And I'm miserable about it. I am not happy. The only good thing that happens with the rain in connection with this show, the lighting is so much better because since it's 3 p.m., my room is on the western side of the house. So there's a lot of, even though there are blackout shutters that I don't believe are like blackout shades. I think they're just kind of gray out. I hope that isn't racially insensitive blackout shades. But anyway, they're not really blackout. And so there's been a lot of light, but when it's a miserable day, look at the fabulous lighting here today. Oh my God, it's fabulous. Anyway, we have, of course, a historic show coming up for you today. We have, I don't know how long it's been. I guess we will find out, but it is Funny Gay Males Are Here. We have Eddie Sarfaty, Danny McWilliams, and Jaffee Cohen. We will also discuss founding member Bob Smith. We will talk about, so many things. Next week, I don't know if you guys saw, we had the show about the documentary of Circus of Books, and we had Rachel Mason on, and her lover is, I don't know, partner, lover. There you go, lover. Buck Angel, porn star Buck Angel, will be here on Tuesday with a couple of other people. And Thursday, I'm going to attempt to do something on Thursday. We shall see if I can pull it off. So therefore, I'm not going to announce what it is. And between now and Tuesday, I am driving down to Provincetown to see the 92-year-old Miss Marilyn May, because she keeps saying to me that, Billy, you got to come down because I could be dead after this. This could be the last show. So I'm going down. And I'll film some of it and we'll talk to her. We'll roll it into another show. So I always open with a anecdote from the past. And this week in the column, I think it was this week, might be last week, the weeks all roll together. I had written about Tyra Banks and kind of meeting her, but not really meeting her at the Emmy Award, the Daytime Emmy Awards. And I was with Darlene Connolly. Now, Darlene Connolly was Sally Spectra on The Bold and the Beautiful. She was a very good friend of mine. And people are like, what was she like? And here's a photo of us. But my favorite one from this, there were so many other ridiculous photos, but just you want her, just your arm or slung around you like, hi, boys. Sally. Darlene was exactly what you would think. Bigger than life, crazy, boisterous, ridiculous. And when we saw Tyra Banks at the Daytime Emmys, she just turned to me and said, honey, who's over there? And that's exactly what you would have wanted from Darlene. She was a broad. She was so talented. She really could have been a great stage actress. And we had talked about it. She had started doing some stage work. I have a video of her doing a reading, which is extraordinary, but I don't have it here. It's all in LA. Anyway, so remembering Darlene Connolly, because people asked what she was like. She was a broad. That's what she was like. You know, like when you see those documentaries about Elaine Stritch, and she's exactly what you want her to be. She was like a redheaded Elaine Stritch. Exactly the same. Anyway, okay. You know, I have a friend that just constantly criticizes me when I say things like this, but it's true. Without funny gay males, there would be no Billy Masters. There would be no, there probably would be no Will and Grace. There would probably be no openly gay comedians. Someone has to really be the ones to push down the doors. What was extraordinary about Funny Gay Males beginning was that you had three people. So in a way, I would think, and we'll talk about this, I would think that makes it a little less scary because there's safety in numbers. And it was three people. We talked about this with Christopher Rice on Tuesday, that gay people very often, especially when you're the first, you're criticized for not being enough this or being too much that or not checking off the boxes of what everyone wants you to be. Well, you had three of them. They were all three completely different, had their own voices, and together you got really a little smorgasbord of comedy. So I'm going to bring them out here, and we're going to do it in alphabetical order. So starting up is, of course, the fabulous Jaffee Cohen. Hey, Jaff.
Hey there, how you doing?
I'm good.
Thank you so much for keeping the history alive.
Well, I think we need to really get it out there.
Yes.
Because the young children, they don't know. And I actually want to bring all of you out, even though there's weird reasons why I wouldn't. But let's also bring out other founding member, the fabulous, and the person actually that I speak to the most, at least virtually, Danny McWilliams.
Hey. Billy.
Hi, Billy.
Baby, you look fabulous.
So do you. I mean, look at this. We all look amazing. And speaking of amazing, oh yeah, exactly. And speaking of amazing, when we talked about this, that Bob Smith was a founding member. He's no longer with us, but his slot was filled, as it were, by one of his dearest friends, and really somebody who kept him alive, kept his spirit alive for me very much. Was Eddie Sarfaty.
Yes.
Hey, Ed.
Eddie.
Thanks for having us.
And I just, because we talked about Bob, I found two photos with Bob. One way back in the day.
Wow.
We're both so young. But this next photo, and I kept saying I thought my friend Erin Quill took it, but I think, Eddie, you took this of us. This was at the after party at that last reading at Barnes & Noble.
Yes.
And this was in the apartment. And I think you may have taken it. So
I might have.
So I just want to thank you.
I have a bunch of photos with Bob in that shirt. So I might have.
That was an incredible night. But rather than go back to the end, let's start sort of at the beginning. Jaffe, how did you guys come together? Whose idea was it?
Well, it was my idea. Who were these other guys? I never saw.
Yeah, I don't know. They were and the rest.
I'm Bo, and that's Larry.
Just a brief history.
Please.
Back in we all met. I met Danny. We were auditioning for a comedy club together. I met Bob the same way. We were all aware of each other. And then around that time, we started putting together shows of gay comics at the Gay and Lesbian Center and some other clubs. And so the concept of having gay comics work in tandem with each other was already out there. Sarah Citron was a lesbian comic. Reno was around in those days. Mm-hmm. A couple of other people. Kelly. Oh, God, what was the first name? Patty Kelly at the Duplex. Danny, do you remember?
Oh, gosh, I forgot her name. No, isn't that horrible? I don't remember her name.
It's horrible.
Helen, isn't it Helen?
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 Yeah.
Who the hell knows?
Helen Keller.
Helen Keller came to me and said,
"That's the one."
That was a mime.
No, Helen Keller came to me and said,
No, I can't.
I don't know what you look like. I can't hear your comments, but I hear you I told you very talented.
You feel funny.
Would you like to do a show at the Duplex? So I said, sure. I didn't have enough material. So Danny was hilarious. Bob was hilarious. So we all got together. We started doing a show at the Duplex. And we initially we had 10, 15 minutes of material, but they liked us. We just kept coming back there. And the Duplex was in the process of moving across the street, so they don't want to book new acts. So we got to stay there weekend after weekend. We built up an audience. The Village Voice wrote about us.
It was huge. I just remember an article in Backstage too.
Right.
Really, because we had Judy Gold on here and we talked about, because I was in Boston at that time and it seemed that every club had a comedy night and the most horrific people showed up. I'm sorry, but they were awful.
Yeah.
But it was sort of a shtick to try to get people in on a Tuesday, say. And but you were the first guys that really took off. I mean, certainly got a lot of national press.
We were all pretty good. That's part of it. We were all funny. I'm not funny anymore, but back then I was funny. And Danny, Danny, what do you remember? Do you remember
what do you remember about starting?
About starting, you said?
Back then.
I remember meeting you, Jaffe, and I remember meeting you, Eddie, on the comedy circuit. The gay comedy circuit back then. And then Jaffe, you had approached me about doing Funny Gay Males. I think you came up with the idea of the name along with Bob. And we did it, and it was all word of mouth. We didn't have any reviewers or anything. It was all word of mouth. We were packed every week. And then Laurie Stone from the Village Voice interviewed us. Gave us a good review, interviewed us, and it kind of took off after that. That's when Howard Stern had us on our show. And then
wow.
Yeah, we were on Howard Stern radio show 5 times. I felt like Gracie Allen, I was going to do a radio show, George, whatever the hell. But, George. But I love those two. But anyway, and then we went on we were on Joan Rivers' show. We were on her show in the afternoon and all that stuff.
Yep, the daytime show.
And Ricky Lake had a talk show back then.
Yeah. That's what I remember of it. That it was meant to be. We were guided by the greatest agent of all. I don't know, the universe. Who the hell knows?
But the thing is that, again, it had to have been somewhat like, I don't want to say scary, but certainly uncharted territory, because you were really taking off quick in a way that gay comics hadn't.
What was scary was before that, when we had to go out to straight club. And for me, it was scary to go to straight clubs and have these because this is like the late 80s. So it was, AIDS was very much in the news. Every gay man was considered a carrier of disease. I mean, there's a lot of homophobia back then that, thank God, has so dissipated over the years. But that was scary. That scary was going into a straight club in Queens and saying, I'm Jewish, I'm gay, and having the MC kind of wipe off the microphone. The joke was, oh, he's gay.
Oh, really? Wow.
And that was scary. Once we got together, I don't remember being so scared, because we had each other, and
I used to wipe the microphone off their faces.
Well, I think once you guys were doing it, as Funny Gay Males, people knew what they were going to see.
Yeah.
Well,
so if you're in a straight club, people weren't prepared for it, and you got people who weren't necessarily friendly.
And when we got review, we mostly got a lot of straight people to our show. We got tons of them. I never knew that many existed. So wow, I thought they were extinct. Who the hell knows? But I the show and reproduced.
I mean, one thing I want to say is that the timing was right, because the gay community was so depressed, so unhappy at that time,
right?
Scared, and we made the conscious choice to not to just go for the laughs. We didn't try to be political, or we didn't try to have a message. We just wanted to show who we were and be funny. I'm funny the way I'm funny. Danny's funny the way he's funny. Bob was hilarious the way he was, and the diversity spoke for itself.
I'm interested, Eddie, at the time.
That you used the word diversity. Today, that wouldn't fly describing this group.
Sounds like a drag queen.
Crazy one. Bob was
I know.
the boy next door.
Again, that was what I always loved. And it's funny, I will say that there were different times where one of you would be my favorite, either, what my mood was or who would speak to me at that time. And I think having a group with three very individual voices was genius, even if it was happenstance. Eddie, you were doing comedy at the time, so you're circling all this. I know that you were really close with Bob. Were you friends with all of them at this time?
I actually I met Danny and Jaffe, doing some of the clubs, and I had met Bob the first time I ever went to Provincetown. A comedian named Georgia Ragsdale asked me to open for her. She had seen me at the Duplex in New York, and so I went.
Weren't you in that little attic? Were you upstairs in that little room, wherever that was?
Where in Provincetown?
In Provincetown, yeah.
Yeah, we were in the she was at the Crown and Anchor in the
she was okay.
Cabaret. So I did 2 weeks there, and I met Bob there, and I invited him to come and see me, and he came on Funny Gay Male's night off. That was the summer that they were in the attic.
Oh, okay. Someone was in the attic. All right.
And then he came to see me, but they wouldn't let him in because it was filled.
It was the Anne Frank Comedy Club.
That's what he used to call it. Yeah.
And then I was in New York. There was a contest at the Stand Up New York, and it turned out that Bob was the host, and I won the contest that night. So we became sort of friendly, but then he moved to California.
Right.
Yeah.
And
he got hit by an earthquake, I think. Something happened.
Yeah. They had been doing Funny Gay Males, but they had also been doing other projects. And Bob had moved to California, and a guy had the club where the attic is. He called it Tropical Joe's. And he wanted Tropical Joe's to be Comedy Central for the summer. And it was going to be the three Funny Gay Males plus me and another comic named Mark Davis.
Oh, I loved Mark.
And we thought that
Mark is great.
We thought that we would do Funny Gay Males, but that it would change every night so people could have time off, and then the audience maybe would come back to see the replacement people. And then Mark ended up deciding he hated Provincetown, even though he was the one who had the idea to put it all together. And then Bob bought a house, so he couldn't come. So then I did the summer with these guys. And then the next summer, Bob had a tragedy. His sister passed away. And then the year after that, all four of us came. And that's how I got to be good friends with Bob.
You know what I remember, things are burned in your corneas. And the one thing I hated about Provincetown, I only did it 2 summers and I couldn't stand it. I said I would never go back as a working comic because the barkering, the flyering, I could not stand it. And I have this image of Jaffe walking on the beach at Herring Cove in his Speedo, towel to towel, giving out flyers. And he would basically do 10 minutes of the act for each person's towel. And that was just, and he would just look at me and say, I can't believe that this is show business.
That's what you have to do.
That was probably the first season. By the second or third season, I'm like, come to the show.
I remember being on the beach that summer, and Jaffe was basically, their flyer was like a little sort of like a little Hirschfeld drawing of Funny Gay Males, and he would just be like, Funny Gay Males, Funny Gay Males. He was like throwing the thing at people.
What the hell's so funny about him? We were lucky in Provincetown. We didn't have to flyer much the first season because it was just word of mouth. when Helen Lawson's name's on a ticket, they come. We were packed. We were packed every week. Who the hell needed to flyer? But, you know, but they expect you to do that. Darling, you got to flyer. You know, so we just did it. It was fun to meet all those cute boys and all that on the beach.
You
know?
did meet a lot of cute boys.
Oh,
That's
I felt
true.
like Connie Francis, where the boys are. I'm like, you know, where the boys are. I can't, you know, what the hell.
But it's really like the opportunity for people to find out who you are.
Right.
You know, because it's, you know, it's not self-explanatory when you're just a guy in shorts and a t-shirt handing someone a flyer. You know, if you're a drag queen dressed like Scarlett O'Hara, they have an idea of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Right.
And so you have to, as the comic, you have to sort of prove that you can make them laugh. Otherwise,
I think the great thing was because you had the name, as you said, Funny Gay Males. It's not like, hi, I'm Eddie Sarfaty. And like, yeah, what the fuck does that mean? This is Funny Gay Males. Oh, I guess you're funny and gay and male. I mean, you know.
I love seeing the drag queens on the beach puff flyering because they start out looking like gorgeous, and by the time they fly, look like a Picasso painting. Like, yeah, the makeup dripping off, like you know, people. They cleared the beach. I'm so glad I wasn't doing drag. Not that I love drag, but I can't put makeup on. That's all there is to it.
Well, what were your audiences like everywhere, not just Provincetown, but was there a higher percentage of gay people, lower percentage of gay people? Do you remember at the beginning what it was like?
It depends where we were. In a lot of places, it would, of course, would be a higher percentage of gay people. And these are gay people in Columbus, Ohio. These are gay people in Kentucky. These are gay people, you know, who were just so thrilled to have an event with these gay comics from New York. And so some of our best shows were in Pittsburgh, Baltimore.
Well, really?
What would happen if we stayed in one place, like Baltimore, for instance? We played a wonderful theater down there.
Yeah, the Baltimore Theater Project.
The theater project. And we stayed there for a month. And after a while, you know, you run out of gay people, right? So the straight people start coming, and we became a show for everybody.
Yeah, true. We had a lot of straight people in Boston, and not Boston, Baltimore. A lot of them. A lot of them. Boy, I wonder if that place is still there, the Baltimore Theater Project.
I think it was up until a couple of years ago. I'm not sure now, but who knows what's there now?
Yeah, I remember we saved the theater when we got there. They weren't producing good shows or whatever. They didn't have enough money, and along we come. We were sold out, and they made all their bills. You know, that was very nice. That was again, just word of mouth. We didn't have to do a goddamn thing. People just came to see us. Wonderful.
You know, we've talked on this show a lot of times about gay men not necessarily being the most supportive audience of other gay men. And I'm curious for comics, for what your experiences was. Actually, I'm going to start with Eddie on this one.
Okay.
I think it can depend on the environment. I mean, in Provincetown, you know, if you go to a drag show in Provincetown, I mean, certain people like the wonderful Varla Jean Merman, who's super, you know, like an opera voice, you know, she has a definite, the gay guy is always, you know, make sure to fit her in when they're there. But on the whole, in the drag shows in Provincetown, are a lot of straight people come to the drag shows because it's different to them. You know, it's not something that they see all the time. And I think that, you know, being funny is like a defense mechanism that a lot of gay guys sort of develop as they grow up. Mm-hmm. So I think that it can be sort of like, oh, I'm just as funny as that person is.
Yeah.
And there can be sort of this challenge.
The competition feeling.
Right. And I also think it's very, you know, for someplace like Provincetown, it's so sexually charged that, you know, when they have one summer we were there and we were up against naked boys singing. So all of a sudden, like, you know, okay, you can go see these like cute gym boys naked, or you can see us naked, you know. So
see, now if you were naked funny gay males, you might have been onto something.
I have to say though, we had a pretty good time of it, you know, for years. And I think it's, you know, like Ethel Merman, we were confident, and we are actually tight. So who gave a shit if there was one or two nasty queens that would criticize?
Right. Overall, that was...
we just, I think we rose above that because our acts were tight. We had a good thing going.
Yes, you're right.
Right, I agree. I think
Yeah.
I go out there and I'm like Ethel Merman. If they could do what I could do, they'd be up here. You know,
right.
Right.
They'd be up
I
here
think you
doing
have you have to have that confidence. I think that I have seen many times where audiences, I will see them laughing, but they're not necessarily, particularly the gay men, it's not as vocal. You've got to earn it.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
John.
and I think because there were three of us, you know, if one of us is off that night, another one is really hot. So, or if you don't like,
Oh, that's true.
you know, if you're anti-Semitic, you know, you might, you know, that kind of thing. You know, whatever. You know, there's something for there was a lot for everybody. So,
But I was thinking, like, in, you know, for someplace like Provincetown, just like getting gay guys into the show could be certain groups of gay guys to come to our show was harder than I think, you know, them going to see naked boys singing and
Or a drag queen.
right. I think, though, in terms of straight people, what was great about Funny Gay Males, it was, you know, it was different in terms of, you know, the advent of Comedy Central, and all of a sudden there were a million comics parading through your living room, and 90% of them were straight white men.
Mhm.
And so all of a sudden here you have Funny Gay Males who are, you know, talking about something a little different. And I think people started to respect that, you know, and you know, comedy makes things less scary for people.
you know,
I think that's true.
Can I say something too?
Yeah.
As long as we're talking about the history, I just want to say, so you mentioned before how you might not have had these other, you know, Ellen and
Right, you've opened doors.
when I was living with Bob in LA at the time, I believe, and it was 1997, and Ellen DeGeneres is doing the show where she's coming out of the closet, and the scene took place in a bookstore.
Mm-hmm.
And Bob and I watched it just to see what, you know, Ellen DeGeneres is up to. We're thrilled at the moment, blah blah blah. But during the scene, Ellen DeGeneres is having a scene with, I guess, Laura Dern, and it's a bookstore, so there's a book sitting there on the bookshelf,
Right between them.
right between them, and it was purple. Oh, I said that book looked familiar. And Bob and I leaned in closer. It was the book that Funny Gay Males wrote about. It was called "Growing Up Gay: From Left Out to Coming Out." It was.
Wow.
You know, it sold a lot of copies. We had a nice. It was a great book, and there it was sitting there. So some queen must have known who we were, and whoever's in charge of the set decoration stuck that book there. And I thought that I always think of that as a tribute to the unsung
Oh
heroes.
yes, we're literate.
And actually, just so we can actually show it, this is the book.
Oh,
Right.
that's the book.
Yeah,
Doesn't that kid look like Bob?
he does.
I always thought it was, actually.
No, it wasn't.
But it does look like him. You know, when you talked about the different types of comedy, you know, Jaffe, you were obviously, as you've said, you're Jewish, but you're also, there is an ethnicity aspect that speaks to any ethnicity. Do you know what I mean? That whether it's a Greek comic or whatever, people identify because they know people like that. Danny, of course, Danny, you would just make me laugh because you would speak number one a mile a minute. And I would go off on these tangents. I'm like, how is he going to get back? And sometimes you didn't, but most times you did. And then you had Bob that I thought was sort of, you know, the least threatening in terms of he was so straight appearing and acting, and he could just be any man.
Right. He was the boy next door.
Yeah. And so I thought that, again, brilliance, you couldn't have cast it better because you had three diverse ways. And there, you could still have had like 10 other people in different slots. But people want to lump all gay people together. And here you saw, if you were scared of gay people, you said, oh, they're not all the same, because nobody could be more different than the three of you.
Yeah, I want to say something about Bob also. I think Bob was the best joke writer ever.
Yeah.
I mean, perfect jokes. Like but my uncle had a sex change when he turned 65 because he read women live longer than men.
That's
perfect. And I think we learned from each other. We all learned from each other because I thought, oh, a joke has to be tight. Okay, I get it.
It was also, you know, it was kind of like every night was a workshop because we would sit through each other's act every night. and you know, I'd come off and Jaffe'd be like, "Oh, I think you should, change this word, or I think you should try hitting that harder." And we would all do that for each other. And even though we're all different, we were able to know each other's acts so well that we could
in the rhythms.
We could make suggestions that were appropriate for each other.
Yeah.
Well, and also what I also love about all of you is that you weren't competitive. I mean, you're competitive in the sense you want to do well, and you don't want somebody. But what I'm saying is right. There's that camaraderie of you. Again, Eddie could not do Jaffe's jokes. Jaffe couldn't do Danny's jokes. I mean, there is going to be some overlap, but your voices are so unique that you don't have to think about that. And if the person before you is better, it only helps you. So I think that's what people don't understand.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we were able to grow as fast as we did. Because initially we only had, 10, 15 minutes of material, but we would get together every night after the show, go to a restaurant and sit and talk, and you could add this to this, try this punchline instead. Maybe if you said it this way, and like Eddie just said, I mean, it was really it was going to comedy school.
It was supportive. I mean, and which was great because a lot of comics can be very protective and closed, and have a very total sum kind of view of everything. Like if you do well, that means I'm not doing well, or if you get this gig, it means I'm not getting. It's not really helpful to anyone.
Yeah, what I also loved is that you all really wrote. I mean, you were really hard workers, and the material constantly changed. People could go to your show several times in a season and see a completely different act. And it wasn't like, okay, this is my 15. I'm not deviating from it. Everything is locked in. Because, well, certainly in Provincetown, it's such a loose environment. You can have fun with that and try things out.
Right. That's where I think everyone got better.
Yeah, we used to hang out afterward, and we would always make each other laugh, and we learned when we hung out to write that down. Oh, get that pad out and write that down, because we entertained ourselves after the show. We go back and entertain ourselves because we were going out in Provincetown. Sometimes it's like, oh God, please, that.
Well, I remember hanging out with you guys, in particular the summer at the UU house, where we would just hang out afterwards and talk, and then somebody would say, "Oh, that's funny. I should write that, or I could use that," or I'd say, "Oh, that's a really good line for Jaffe," or whatever.
Right.
And so much comedy comes out of conversation with funny people.
Oh yeah, sure. I always tell people at the Duplex, I host a weekly show, the open mic. Well, not now, with the Ebola virus going around, closed. So whatever the hell, but I always told them when they would talk to me, I was like, write that down. It's very funny. But it would go over their head. They'd be like, "Oh yeah, I will." And then they never did, of course. But then I want to steal it. When they wouldn't show up for the show. No, I would never do that. But
I knew comedians that did.
Oh, plenty. Oh, sure, plenty. And you said before about gay men with comedy. A lot of young gay men, when I was doing the Duplex, still I'm doing the Duplex, or not even before hosting it, would say to me, "It's so hard. I have a hard time performing in front of gay men. They don't seem to find me funny. But when I go in front of a straight crowd, they love me." And I'm thinking, well, you're doing a minstrel show. That's what's funny about it. It's not funny.
Well, that's true.
They love that stuff. But
it's a caricature.
Gay men, I mean, I got to put the camera over there. Standard of comedy is up to there, kids.
Well, that's true.
Deliver.
It's also that jokes that are gay in theme and are more obvious. All those gay men have already thought of in their own lives.
Exactly.
So it's like you really have to figure out how to come at it from another angle. Otherwise, they're like, okay, what's new of it?
Yeah, I also think that because you all have a similar sensibility, you can feed off each other's energy, and it's only going to make each of your material that you're writing better, because it's going to make, your mind works more when you're around other creative people.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah.
I think we had I don't know if we had similar sensibility, we had similar taste.
Right. Okay.
Like all three of us, when we would go out to watch other comic, and let's face, not everyone is all that great. but when a joke was funny, we would all laugh. Myself and Eddie and Danny and Bob, we would all laugh because we would just know funny when we see it, or if it's or original when we see it. Yeah, I think we were just lucky to have found each other at that time, and it was really, it was, Danny was joking about this before, but it felt kind of blessed.
Yeah,
I always thought so.
It's like we were in a foxhole together, kind of.
Well, that's true too. Yeah, that's absolutely true.
I wish the hell we had that goddamn agent back again. We could use it, but what?
Are you all good audiences? Each of you, like when you see somebody, is your critical hat always on of this could be better if, or can you just sort of relax and enjoy a show?
For me, I don't anymore. I just kind of watch because comedy's generational. And now that I'm hosting the Duplex, there's a lot of young transgendered, a lot of young gay comics, women and men, and their humor is not mine. I don't get it, but the audience is howling, laughing, and I realize, I don't get it. But it's not yours to get. Just the laughs are coming, the drinks are selling. That's it. Sing out, Louise. Get off stage. Get out of here.
Right.
So all that crap. So what was the question again? I forgot.
You're a good audience, but only if you get it.
Only if you get it, right? So I smile and laugh, not at their expense. I don't understand a lot of the humor, but once in a while they come up with something great. But who am I? I go up there. I do all my old one-liners.
Do you still?
I still do, and they love them. They does very well. They love it. It's the old standard comedy. One line after another. I love that stuff, and so they get my humor. I'm glad they do. Some of them think like this is old hat, but I'm getting howls. Old hat, my ass. This is where comedy came from. So
I think everybody is a different type of comedian. Some people are line comedians, some people are storytellers or raconteurs, and some people have set a punchline. And I've always found that your rhythm better than anyone else. Jaffe, your voice is so specific. That I always could tell, even if I read something, I would hear your voice in my head.
Yeah, but something. However specific I am, there was Woody Allen, there was Joan Rivers, there was Rodney Dangerfield. I mean, these are the legends. These are people who if I could be anywhere near as good as they are. So I just had that Jewish thing. Beginning back to Joan Rivers. I mean, Joan Rivers was kind of our comedy goddess.
Oh, yeah.
Right, sure. I think for so many gay men.
Remember when we went on a show and Bob did his, Thanksgiving joke and she topped it. Remember that?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah, the joke was, I came out to my parents at Thanksgiving. I made a carefully worded announcement at Thanksgiving. Mom, please pass the gravy to a homosexual. So Joan Rivers jumps in and goes, "Oh, wouldn't it be funny if she passed it to your father?" And
good to pass it to your father. But hilarious. Oh God.
So now this is the second time that joke has been said on this show because Judy Gold said it as well. So it is, Bob lives on. Let's just remember that.
Especially in Thanksgiving gravy.
I have, it's so funny because when I first saw Bob, I remember, and we had long conversations about this. I knew he was a writer more than a performer, that, he was a good performer, but he was such a great writer. Yes. And I said, you just write. He wrote specifically for his voice, but he could write anything.
Oh, every time I read his books, I had to have a dictionary like, the other day, Bob, what the hell is he talking? Oh, got it.
He was also really generous. Like, he would be like, "Oh, Eddie, here's a good joke for you."
And it's funny. I pay that forward because I was just in Provincetown 2 weeks ago, and I thought of a line that was really funny. And this is when you only smart person realizes this. It's a really funny line, not for me, but it was perfect for Varla. And I said, here's a great joke for you. She's like, that's perfect for right here, and put it right in the act. And again, that's the thing. You can be funny, but you have to know your voice. Bob could write anything, but he also knew his voice. Did you all start as writers, or was it more performance and then the writing came?
Performance for me. I started out in improv in the 1980s.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Improv humor. Yeah. In a group called Premises. There were 5 of us. We met at HB Studios. And yeah, it was called. And, you know, in the 1980s, what do you call it? Improvisational humor was big. Was
huge,
big, you know,
sure.
Second City TV, all that stuff. And so we formed a group. We worked at the bitter end for 2 years. We even got paid for it. We got paid a little money, along with like other comics, like Joy Behar was on the bill sometimes, and Nancy Parker. These all great old comics and all. And that's how I started. And boy, was it ballsy, because you know you ask a question. Give me a name of a personality. You know,
and go.
Joan
Right.
Rivers. Give me a name of a fruit. Banana. Go. That's it. Start. Let's go ahead. No time to look at. Get the hell down. Boy.
So Danny, did your stand-up come out of the improv experience, or did you have to learn to sit down and write an act?
No, it came out of that because I was very witty with everyone, and everyone said to me, God, when the group ended, you should do stand-up because you're so quick and witty. And I did. So it came from that. I did. Then, of course, I did write some jokes for myself when I went out, and I tried my best to do it. Had a hard time a lot of times in the straight clubs because they didn't get me. But all of a sudden, the gay comedy became big. Like you said, Jaffe, Reno, Sarah Citron. There were plenty of places where we would work, and gay comedy sold out, and they paid us. We always got paid. Remember the Tropicana Club on Street?
Sure.
I mean, we would work there all the time, and someplace in the East Village. And so that's how I started, from improvisational comedy, which I couldn't do improv now because you have to be on top of pop.
You read everything.
How did the secretary?
Like, Adele, what's her last name? I don't know who the hell anybody is. You know what I mean?
Well, Danny had this character. When I first saw Danny, he had this character. I'm sure he still has it. The secretary lady. You know, Finley coming. Yeah, I can't.
And come back, honey, gonna bring Casey. Yeah, right.
And there was one, and I was watching him. This is when I first saw Danny, and Danny, there's a little bit of a sadness that runs through some of his characters, which I find so compelling, because the line I remember was, "Oh, she took a stroke, no speech, right side, no right."
Right, that's right.
She took a stroke, right side, no speech, recognizes no one. We just pray, God take her down, don't let her linger.
Yes.
And it was so dark. I thought it was the funniest thing I ever heard.
That'd be a good name for a funeral home. God take it out, don't let her linger.
And Danny would do these characters. He had another one. He did the cold cut lady.
Cold cut lady, who always gave that.
And you know, this woman going in and ordering
cold cuts and being very disciplined.
Like very difficult. I want it thin. I want it thin. Slightly. I want to be able to see it. And he would do this. And there were certain, Jaffe's right. Like there were certain moments in it. He'd do this line where he obviously had irritated the counter guy, and he'd go, I saw that with the motion with the bologna.
With the salami. What the hell was this?
And I would like go, like, you know, because you're backstage, I would like go into the wings and just wait for him to say that line, because it always made me laugh.
Well, this is also a good example.
And then I would give. Oh, go ahead, Jaffe.
Go ahead, Jaffe.
Of how we added to it, because Danny had the line, "Oh, have you passed your stone yet?" You know, have you passed your stone yet? Oh, my Archie had one of those. Fell out of him like an anchor. Then one of us said, and maybe Bob, it woke me up.
Yeah, it woke me up.
I just the image of someone passing a kidney stone.
I should do those characters again, because I'm their age now. You know what I mean? Now
that's the thing, is that I think when you're surrounded by funny people, and again, it's not competitive, but somebody else's mind will think of the topper or think of something that would just elevate it over the top. And I think that being fans of each other and watching each other night after night, you're going to know the material almost as well as you know your own.
Yeah, well, it's a very nourishing environment.
Absolutely.
And, you know, and we had a lot of fun, because, you know, comedy's hard. And if you're not having fun, I mean, no one's doing it for the erratic income and the parental disapproval. You're doing it because you're having fun. Otherwise,
wait, I enjoy the parental disapproval, I have to say. It drives me.
You know, that's one of the things about the Duplex, the open mic I host there. It's very successful. It's packed every week. Good God. You know, it ended in March. It'll come up again when this is all over. But
sure.
But I was always very nice to everybody who came down. I gave everybody a fair chance because open mics.
Because you know what it's like.
Yes, exactly. A lot of open mics that are around now. I'm not going to mention a couple, but a couple of the comics are talking about them now and bad-mouthing the hell out of them, saying these places suck. These people who run them, who the hell they think they are, saying who's funny, you're going to buy 2 drinks, and all of a sudden they decide you're not going up after I bought my 2 drinks, blah, blah, blah. I was always good to everybody who came in, except if you crossed me. If you crossed me,
well, of course,
then I would.
But I also think that a lot of hosts, I think hosting is an art, and I found that doing stand-up was always doing a set was always harder for me than actually hosting because I enjoy the hit and run and setting somebody up to succeed. But so many hosts use it as their own platform, and I think that somebody going well after them or before them, you can tell they're not happy, and that's just an unhealthy atmosphere.
Oh yeah. I had
so a good host is worth gold, as far as I'm concerned.
What's worth gold?
A good host is worth gold. So see, give Danny some gold.
Oh please! I get nervous as hell hosting that show because that place is goddamn packed to the rafters, and I got to shut everything.
Well, and you don't know who's going to be before or after you. They could be better than you, and it's going to make you raise your game.
Oh, completely. I always try to get a good one-liner in between each act. I try my best.
Absolutely.
Like one time this woman went up, a lesbian comic, and she was talking about how she just recently had sex with a man. So when she finished her act, I said, "Oh, that was Liz Jones, lesbian, recently had sex with a man." Folks, I like a lesbian who thinks outside the box. Don't you? All right. So we. Then I had another.
You kill me.
Oh, I had another comic go up there talking about child molestation. He wasn't making jokes about it. He was talking about as a kid, he was an altar boy. It was very funny. And it wasn't at the expense of child. He had a good point of view. He handled it well. So when he got off, I went up there. That was Rob, Smith. Everybody, not Rob Smith, Rob Brown, whatever the hell his name was. I said, oh my God, talking about child molestation. Folks, one time I used to work at a hustler agency, and one time this guy got on the phone. He said to me, "Hey, you got any kids?" I said, "I don't know. Let me look at my pedophile."
I too had a joke about child molestation.
Of course you do.
I said you hear so much about priests molesting children. You never hear about rabbis molesting children because a Jewish kid would never shut up about it.
Now see, that also is a joke that makes you think.
Yeah.
Which is, again, I think so smart.
Yeah. And then the mother would be bragging, "Oh, my child's dating the rabbi. Oh my God, I'm so proud."
No, I could just see it now. My child was molested by a rabbi. Mine was molested by a doctor.
I always wish I was molested. I could use the money.
A doctor, a dentist.
Yeah, a doctor. Yeah, a doctor, podiatrist. Not a doctor.
Yeah, whenever I see those commercials of Binder and Binder, were you molested?
Oh, I love those commercials.
You may have some money coming to you. I wasn't, but I call them anyway to see if I can get something.
Exactly.
I was rejected. Can I get at least a tip?
Right. I was a Boy Scout. Nobody touched anything. Jaffe, we talked about getting started. What made you get started as a comedian?
I didn't get started until I was in my 30s. Because I
really.
I started out as a writer, and I wrote some plays, and I'm one of those people that I was not the class clown. I didn't even realize I was funny. People would chuckle at things I said, but I never dreamed of being a comedian really when I was younger. And I went to college and I wrote some plays, and I wrote what I thought was serious dramas about my family, but I wrote it the way my family talks to each other.
Did people laugh at that stuff?
Yes, I didn't even realize I was writing comedy. I was just writing about my family.
But you're also writing truth.
It's close.
Hilarious.
Truth is as much as I could figure out what the
truth right. Truth-ish.
True-ish. And I got to a point where I was writing a trilogy about a Jewish mother and her gay son, and then Harvey Fierstein kind of did Torch Storm trilogy, and
stole it right out from under you.
I guess he's got that material now, and I didn't know what to do. So someone said, "Why don't you try doing stand-up?" I said, "Okay." And I saw myself on a videotape, and I was funny looking, and I talk funny, and I look funny. I was a comedian. I didn't even know it. I had to see myself on the video before I would even.
Oh, you were always funny. All my friends always thought you were witty as hell. You know?
Oh, and the thing is that now once you realized you were a comedian, did it inform your writing, or did you continue writing in that narrative form, knowing it would come out funny?
It just gave me confidence, you know.
Really?
Yeah, it gave me confidence because people can say whatever they want to say about you, but if you get into a room and you make people laugh, then you know something's going right up here. And I do I'm a writer now. I'm developing shows.
I know.
And I'm working, and a lot of what I write is not necessarily funny, but it's all based on human psychology and character, and then the funny sometimes happens by accident for me. It's like when I try to think, like, what would this character actually say in this situation? If they're an intelligent character, they'll most likely say something witty. People say funny things in real life. Okay, I'll have to do this joke then.
It's great.
I do a joke about how if you want to be funny, you listen. People say stupid things, and then you write it down. You have an act. So a long time ago, I was getting a haircut. I mean, when I wasn't raising it, I was getting a haircut, and the guy leans over my shoulder and says, "What are you doing?" I say, "I'm reading a magazine." He says, "What's that a picture of?" I said, "Oh, this is the guy who weighs 1,400 pounds." The guy says to me, "Oh, really? How tall is he?" So, the punchline I can tell.
You're 2 feet tall.
1,400 pounds. If he was 35 feet tall, he would still be chunky. It's like, how tall is he? like there was some correct height for that weight,
Yeah. You should have said, how wide is he, not how tall is he?
Well, they're big bones.
Big
bone man. Oh, God. Big bone man.
Eddie, what about you? Now, did you start as a writer or as a performer? Which side did you approach?
Oh, when I was a kid, I thought I wanted to be an actor. My parents sent me to a summer camp for the arts, and I did acting and choir, and I loved it. And I was a theater major in college, and I sort of discovered near the end of the very expensive university that I really that I really didn't like the nuts and bolts of being an actor enough, the way you're really supposed to like it. I loved like the camaraderie of putting on a show and being around smart and creative and funny people. And I was doing a semester at the National Theater Institute, and I was telling a story, and people were laughing. And it was one of those experiences where you're telling the story, and someone says, "Oh, Dave, come here. Eddie, you got to tell him the story. You got to tell him the story."
Was it supposed to be a funny? Did you think it was a funny story?
It was a funny story. This thing that happened to me on the New London Ferry, but people were laughing, and more people were laughing. And then a woman in the class said, "Oh, you should be a stand-up comic." And I had never, ever thought of that. And the next day I was in a Shakespeare class that was super, super serious. It was being taught,
he's a laugh riot, that Shakespeare.
Hilarious. Especially Henry IV. Hilarious.
Oh,
And but it was being taught by these two people who were founding members of the group theater in New York. And I was butchering this soliloquy, and I really was kind of lost as to how to do it. And they were giving me directions that I didn't really understand, and I just started being goofy. And afterwards, this other woman said, "Oh, she's right. You should be a stand-up comic." And it was years before I ever got the nerve to do it, because it was so terrifying. The idea was so terrifying, even though I'd been in plays for my whole life. And
but now you're exposed as a comic because you're really showing yourself, your soul.
Right. There's no, if you're in a play and you have a funny line, whether the audience laughs or doesn't, the next actor has a line.
Right.
So you're not like waiting there hanging for, so it's very different. And so
Eddie's a really good writer. Like there's one, sometimes a joke is the perfect image. He talks about someone shaving his cock and balls, and it says it looks like turkey parts.
Yeah,
that's right.
And that was like the moment. Oh, Eddie can write. Eddie,
Butterball.
Yeah, and season.
So so I did comedy once to like sort of cross it off my bucket list.
Did
And
you
then-
write your own material?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I was so like sick to my stomach all day, and then I did it, and it was sort of like, okay, that's off my list. And it was so scary, Billy, that the next weekend I agreed to go bungee jumping because I'm like, okay, let's get that off the list too. And
It can't be as bad as stand up.
and then you know, then like the next year I did it like 3 or 4 times, and then I started doing it half-assed. And
Were you doing the same act each time?
well, I was, you know, you do jokes
Ish.
over to hone them, and then you add more stuff. And then I took a job as a manager of a bar because I thought it would be a way for me to sort of have time to do stand up, but also, and it ended up being, you know, unfortunately, it let my fear take over. I knew money was coming in, so if I didn't have gigs, you know, and then
We're at the townhouse, right? The townhouse.
yeah,
Yeah, I
and
remember
then
that.
Oh, I love the townhouse.
Oh yeah. I wonder if it's still there. I think
oh,
it
it's
is.
still there,
Yeah, it's there.
and then in 2001 was when I went to do Funny Gay Males with these guys, and I just said, I'm quitting my job. I can't be 80 years old.
Remember that.
You
Wow,
know,
that is
worrying
great.
that
though.
worrying that I didn't do this. And the writing actually was Bob Smith. I guess like in 2006, maybe he got asked to submit a essay or to an anthology that someone was putting together called When I Knew, which was all these comics, but also prominent business people and actors, and you know, telling their story about when they first realized that they were gay. And I was like, leave me alone. I haven't written anything longer than a joke since I was doing my final paper the night before it was due in college. And he kept bugging me, and I wrote the story, and people really liked the story. And then it ended up, you know, I ended up a little later getting a book deal, and that's how that all started. You know, so I'm really grateful to him for that.
Yeah, can I say one more thing also about yeah, I mean, it was really amazing. It was just amazing times, and one day we have to get together and really tell the story. But you know, you asked the question before about like, was it scary? It's like when we were starting out. You know, maybe Eddie's a little younger, but certainly when I was starting out, when Bob was starting out, when Dan was starting out, our friends were going through horrible sicknesses and sicknesses. So doing stand-up, how scary can that be? You know, you know, there was a way that we kind of emerged from the ashes of that disaster.
Judy Gold had talked about that on this show, that it was also, it gave you a freedom to say anything, and people needed to laugh. They needed that release. So you were actually, I remember, I had been hosting shows in Boston, and a friend of mine was in the hospital dying of AIDS at this point. He was towards the end. And I went in to see him, and it was one of the first people I had seen in that at that stage. And I walked in, I mean, it's hard to imagine, but so quiet and reverential. And he turned to me and said, "Oh my God, if you're being nice to me, it really must be bad." And he said to me, he's like, "Could you just please treat me like a real person?" I said, "Well, I do hope you're dying because you look like shit." And he's like, "Thank you. Somebody said it." And I said, that's, you know, that was what the people who were sick needed. That's what the people who were left behind needed. You know, I had remembered saying a joke that, and it was, you know, again, talk about authentic. A joke was that I had gone to more memorial services than first dates, that you go up to the bereaved and say, "I'm sorry for your loss. Would you like to grab drinks later?" You know, but that was real. That was actually what we were living through.
Well, comedy, you know, there needs to be some kind of emotional weight for it. There needs to be some kind of emotion to it. Otherwise, the most it can be is clever.
Right.
You know,
remember Steve Moore?
I was just going to bring him up. Like, you know, he was out, but he also was out about having AIDS. And he, you know, he did a thing for
one
HBO.
of the, I think, the first person, right?
Yeah, I mean, he did a thing for HBO that was like it was hilarious, but it was also, of course, moving and thoughtful. And, you know, he talked about just the first that comes to mind. He said, like, oh, you know, my parents for my birthday last year, they bought me a funeral plot. You know, I was like, oh God. Right? It was like, and then he goes, worse that this year, I was like, what are they going to give me this year? They didn't give me anything. I said, Mom, did you forget my birthday? She said, no, but you didn't use what we gave you last time.
They also have the joke, you know, people, you know, when you tell them that you have AIDS, they always come up and you go, well, no, we could all die tomorrow. You know, a car could come and hit me. And Steve's response was, yeah, especially if I'm driving, I can't fucking run me over.
And he would say, hey, don't grunt at me. I'll open a vein and take out the front row.
Yeah, so he.
I know. I always made a joke about how all my friends died of AIDS when we did Funny Gay Males. So when I do my comedy now at the end of the show, I said, you know, we did Funny Gay Males. I met so many friends, they all died of AIDS. Then 10 years later, we reunited. We were on the road again. I made all new friends. They all died of AIDS. So here I am in the middle of the June doing another comedy show in front of you lovely people. Does anybody here want to be my friend?
I kind of thought that was
going. You know, what the hell? Yeah.
So let's talk about Bob Smith, because we've talked about him, but who knows, how did he get started in comedy? Was it through writing or was it through performing? What came first?
He was I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
He was you know, he in high school, I remember and I think I have some of his papers still, although I donated most of them to the Out Archives. Like he wrote the skits for like the senior show in high school.
Mm-hmm.
That was really fun. And this always touched me because, you know, like I said, the idea of doing stand-up didn't occur to me until I was older. But the idea that I would do it when I was 18 was just like, I couldn't imagine having anywhere near that kind of
New York, yeah.
confidence.
Yeah, right.
And he was out doing it like in high school, you know, in college and so forth. And I said, Bob, that's
material in Buffalo, New York.
Right. And I said, Bob, that's so, you know, that's just amazing to me. And he said, well, you know, everyone around me was dying. He said, I just thought I better do this now because I don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
And thank God he did, because he, you know, I mean, he died at 59, but still, like, I mean, if he had not done all this stuff, you know, it's a great thing. And
a lot poor.
And unfortunately, like, I try to remind myself, you know, I could get ALS tomorrow, or I could get run
or
over
anything,
by a car,
right?
Or COVID or whatever. And, you know, what am I doing watching TV? I should be, you know, I should be writing. And it's like a constant reminder. It's also, you know, like Jaffe was saying about, you know, it's not as scary as dying of AIDS, you know? So it's like I remember no matter what's going on in my life, I have to remind myself, it's not ALS. You know, it's not ALS. You know, my mother's annoying me. The rent is overdue, you know, whatever. It's not ALS. And he was really remarkable.
Yeah, I will never forget when I found out that he was sick. He had ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. What was the joke?
I don't even like baseball.
Yeah,
right.
I was with him. He had, you know, I was with him. We would go to the gym together, and he like had some muscle twitching in his arm. And I was like, Bob, what's with that? He said, I don't know. And he was having trouble, not with strength, but with putting those clips on the end of the barbell.
Uh-huh.
And so he said, went to the doctor. And of course, the only way they can diagnose that disease is by eliminating 100 other things.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I remember him coming back from the first time. The doctor said, she said it's probably nothing. There's 100 things it could be. And because 95 of them are like you deal with. He goes, there's a couple of them that are really not so great. And there's one that's really awful. So then he kept like over the next year, he kept going to the doctor, and they were and eliminating all these things. And then he asked me to go with him to the doctor. And so I was there when the doctor said that, you know, it appears that you have ALS. And that's when he said, I can't have Lou Gehrig's disease. I don't even like baseball. and
over
it was
again,
like
always
so
working.
dark, but so
It's the release that you need.
yeah.
Yeah, that's it, the release. Yeah. Wonder if anybody who plays curling ever got ALS. But anyway.
It's like Judy talked. Bob wrote about this in his book. When Bob's sister committed suicide, which was just horrible, horrible, horrible. And Judy called him up the next day, and he broke down on the phone. You're sobbing, and without missing a beat, she said, "Oh, Bob, don't you think you're overreacting? It's been 24 hours." And
That is something only a comedian could say to
Yes.
another comedian.
Yes, very true.
Yeah.
A lot of
So,
times
I mean, but
watch-
that's like, he talked about that was lighting a candle in a coffin. And that's what comedy should do.
Yeah, you're right.
And he
you're
was
right.
so brave talking about it, and he had gone public with it. What was it like for you guys? Because you were so close to him, to find out that, you know, your colleague had this disease that there was no cure for, and also see the deterioration, and yet see that the mind was still so sharp.
Yeah, I've got a little story about
Jaffee,
that.
go ahead.
I have a little story about that.
Go ahead.
You know, in the last few years of his life, he lost the ability to speak.
Yes, I know.
And he had to communicate by sort of writing letters on your hand type thing. And you could slowly figure out what he was saying. So one year I'm driving him to Provincetown. I'm thinking, oh, I got to drive to Bob at Provincetown. He won't be able to speak, and it's going to be awkward. And, you know, and I'm not good at these things. And I'm you know, and I'm going to start crying, and I'll make him feel bad. I felt a little awkward around Bob towards the end, because I was so heartbroken by it. I felt awkward and never quite sure how to be around him. But, halfway to Provincetown, we stopped in Rhode Island, and we both got stoned. So Bob could still inhale, and for me, the pot acted as a truth serum. So we get back in the car, and I just burst into tears. Bob, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I love you so much. I'm crying. And he's crying too, because the thing is, as funny gay males, we were like children growing up together, and we gave each other our careers, we gave each other our lives in a way, and we had done so much for us. And when Bob and Danny and I were traveling around, we kind of had our own little language.
Yes, we did.
Totally based on what Danny would say. And Danny had the story that he went home. It comes around, don't worry. But
Okay.
Danny had the story where he went home, and a woman in the neighborhood came up to him and said, "Oh, it's been a year since I got the call." And Danny said, "What call? What are you talking about? The call. Don't you know what a call is? I got the call. My Archie was in the hospital, and they called me and told me he was dead. I got the call." So getting the call was our shorthand for dying, basically.
Right. Yeah.
So and so got the call. Betty Davis got the call. Lucille Ball got the call.
Right.
And so we're crying, and Bob reminded me of the fact that yes, he got the call. He said, "I got the call," and when he said that, I just burst into tears, because what it said to me, that after all these years, we're still thinking alike.
Right.
We still have the same comedy vocabulary in our head. So when he said it was such an intimate moment, because who even knew what
that meant?
Talking about,
Yeah.
other than me and Eddie and Danny, and maybe some people who had been around us. And when he said that, I just realized a friendship like that is like once in a lifetime. It was such a gift to have known him, and to really to have learned the craft and accompanied each other on this incredible journey.
Yeah. What about you, Danny?
What was the question again? The answer was so great. I can't forget what the question was.
Being around Bob at the time with the diagnosis, and sort of dealing with it. How did you deal with it?
Bob called it his "you're gonna diagnosis."
Your diagnosis. Yes.
You're gonna diagnosis.
Oh, how did I deal with that? Oh God, I dealt most. I was shocked and all that stuff. I didn't know what to make of it. I didn't see much of Bob until the end. Toward the end of his life, I helped him think he paid me a little money to help him out every day, get him dressed and make his breakfast and take him for walks and walk the dog and all that. I just kept making my jokes in front of him, and he would laugh and type out another one-liner answer to it and all. I just dealt with it. I didn't make it part of the big picture or so or whatever. If I'm making any sense, I don't know if I am.
Sure, you are.
You're such an in the moment kind of comic.
You have ALS, and this one's got BVDs, and this one's got I don't know whatever the fuck.
Right.
I mean,
because that was his attitude. Yeah, I have ALS. Go get me a cup of coffee, will you please? Blah blah blah. Yeah, and I would always make jokes with him when I was making his dinner. I'd heat it up and I'd walk him with the tray. And go, you know what, Blanche? We got rats in the basement. I put the in front of him, and I would he would lift up the tray, and I'd start doing what Betty Davis did. When she sees the rat, and Bob would be hysterical. The only problem with that is he would start choking on the food. I'm like, oh Jesus Christ! Oh my God, what did I just do here?
Yeah, you killed him.
Yeah, I killed him. Oh, dun dun. So in Law and Order. Yeah, so I just constantly made jokes with Bob. As much as I can, and all that. And yeah, I guess that's how I dealt with it. Boy, that's how I dealt with any goddamn.
Eddie, what were you going to say?
Danny's like such an in the moment kind of comic.
Right.
I mean, we all are, but I think like he's so like when it was interesting when you asked him about how he dealt with Bob. I'm like, I was there, and Danny was just like in the moment and making jokes about anything and everything. And Bob, short of a cure, there was nothing better for Bob to be around.
Yeah, but Bob loved my foul mouth. If I got foul about, people we all hated, he would pee himself. He would just die. Well, others were like, really? Like, yeah, really? What the hell? What are you, shocked? Come on.
Bob would write down things that Danny said, like just like crazy, filthy, I would say like Danny spews paragraphs of profanity that's so specific it's like poetry.
Yes.
what Eddie, what I remember at the end
dirty comedy.
Eddie, I remember that at the end, in particular, I remember we had tried to get together a few times, and we finally did at that book reading, but each time he had said to me that we have to make sure we go out with Eddie because Eddie is the one that can translate for you. And I was like, what do you mean translate? And he's like, he's the one that's around me all the time. So I can just make a noise and he knows what it means.
Right. Well, I mean, it's not to say that I have any particular powers or talent for that. It's just when you're around someone, especially as they've progressively lost, your ear is just able to pick up the remnants of the phrases or the words.
Right.
And that was, I was so grateful for that because I remember, one of the great things about being a comic is to see the effects of your jokes on people. So if we would be like at a party or just hanging out and Bob would make a joke and Danny and Jaffe or whoever would laugh, I mean, that's nourishing for you as a comic.
Oh, of course.
And I remember, there was so many times, as things progressed where he would make jokes and very few people could understand.
Right.
And, I still remember the first time that I couldn't understand. And
really?
Felt, oh my God, this is the most horrible, thing for him and for me as well, and he did stand up basically until he finally got an audience that just couldn't understand him.
Yeah, he did that,
he would get up and he would struggle, and there were always people who were able to get him. People who came to see him were fans, so that they sort of knew what he was. They knew his rhythms to some degree. And I was in Key West teaching at this theater where we performed, and I remember he posted on Facebook, "I've done my last stand-up," and that. Because that was so much of who he was. That was really, but he kept writing, and thank God he did. And he wrote between the time he was diagnosed and the time he passed away, he finished a novel, wrote 2 others, wrote a book of essays. We wrote a draft of a screenplay, and he wrote a bazillion jokes for himself and for other people. So I mean, that's amazing.
He also wrote lots of emails. He and I corresponded up until pretty close to the end, and he's still, to this day, still on the distribution list for my column every week because I just can't delete.
Right.
So all this stuff sits there in that email address. It doesn't bounce back, which is really lovely, because I think that would bother me.
I think we should also mention that, just for the record, he was the first gay comic on The Tonight Show.
Well, I was actually going to ask that.
Gay comic on the HBO special.
Right.
So without him, really.
Talk about trailblazing. And so I was actually going to ask all of you about that, because he had sort of gone off. Yeah, I don't know if he went off on his own, but he certainly became his own entity at a certain point, and then had this success. And again, I think because he was the boy next door, he was everyman. He wasn't so flamboyant. Yeah, absolutely right. Was there any competitive nature, or was it good for him?
No, I was happy for him. I mean, even if it happened to me, I'd take it too. I mean, that showbiz kid, I always said to myself, you're going to do show business, you're going to get your face smacked sometimes. And when you do, depending on what it is, you got to eat it. If you didn't get the part, what are you going to do? He got the part. If you got the part, he didn't get it, you'd be happy. So I was happy for him.
I was happy for him, but I have to admit, it's also difficult for me initially because like I said, I didn't start out to be a stand-up comic, and I'm not going to wind up a stand-up comic. I was a stand-up comic for this wonderful period of my life. And once Bob got opportunities to do things outside of Funny Gay Males, for me personally, going out by myself to a club, or the fun out of doing stand-up kind of.
Well, yeah, because the stand-up is only, I mean, when we would go do a show in Florida or somewhere, we'd be there for, a week or 2 weeks, and we would have a lot of fun. But when you're the comic going on the road yourself, you're like, go to a strange city, and then you have a great show, and then all of a sudden you're alone in your hotel room, or worse, you have a terrible show and then you're still alone in your hotel room. It's not.
I always envied you guys, I have to say, because you did have each other. I've been on the road sometimes with co-headliners or somebody, an opening act, that I said that was fun, but you had this built-in troupe.
Yeah,
that you could all be with each other, and it was rare, and it's still to this day. I don't know if there's any, there are double acts like Kathy and Mo and whatever, Nijin and Kathy and Mo, and French and Saunders and people like that. That I'm like, that's the dream, because you also get to enjoy the highs and play with somebody else.
Yeah. You're not going to the airport by yourself. You're not driving home by yourself. You're not in a hotel by yourself. You have friends to sit around with and watch TV and crack jokes and crack each other up. And I think what was unique about Funny Gay Males is that we were a group, but each one of us but we were still stand-ups. So
right.
One of us was responsible for our own act. So some of the people say, well, why don't you do sketches together? Or why don't you do this together? And we would try. It's okay. But ultimately, it's I did my act, I did his act. We all did our act, and we helped each other with our acts. But my act was my responsibility and my achievement.
Right.
And so it was really the best of both worlds, where you're part of a group. And we all got along. That was the great thing.
Yeah, that was the key.
Yeah, we did. We got along.
And that's hard. Especially on the road.
It's very hard. Friends doing this.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Who decided the order that you guys would perform in? Because it always seemed to me so organic and natural.
I think the first night, we said, who wants to go? And Danny said, I'll go first. Bob said, I'll go after him. And I said, okay, I'll go next, and just one of these things that, in a dressing room the size of, the size of a closet.
Yeah, barely big enough for one person.
Yeah, one person.
And it worked. You know, Danny's hyper, Bob's more cerebral. I come in and do my Jew thing. It all sort of worked.
Yes.
Could you do it today? That we talked to Judy in particular about the political correctness and how people are so sensitive about certain things.
Yeah.
Would you have been constrained in today's climate?
I would have just shut my mouth off and say, I'm going with it. I don't give a goddamn. I don't
Good
care.
for you.
I don't care.
I
Because
think
that's
there
how I
may
host
be-
the duplex. Sometimes I make AIDS jokes at the duplex, and people are like, oh, really? Yeah, really. Shut up.
Well, I
don't
mean, I
know.
think if you're a gay guy doing AIDS jokes, it's
right.
very different than someone else
Right.
doing it.
Right.
I think maybe there's a few jokes that that each of us did that maybe wouldn't be such a great might get a little less of a laugh now, or maybe a little bit of a, oh, hey, is that too much?
Grown.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be, whatever younger comics wanted to do it, they wouldn't be us. They, you said could it happen again? It depends on the talent. It depends on the desire. If you had three funny guys, three guys who were all talented who wanted to work together, I'm sure they'd figure out a way of doing it.
When was the last time you guys performed together?
I think about 1993 or 94. I think.
No.
Oh,
No,
it's not.
no.
No, it's not. I'm
No,
wrong.
about 10 years ago.
2006. In 2006,
Oh.
we had at the Gotham
at Gotham Comedy
Right,
Club.
we had a revival. That's the last time I think
Yeah, like
we
a
did.
20-year reunion kind of thing.
Right.
It was a
and
20-year
that's-
celebration of the founding of Funny Gay Males.
That's it. And we had a big house. We had a big ass house. I was so amazed. Like, boy, the other day I was doing the duplex before the Ebola virus hit, and we usually go around to Julius and have a couple of belts. And the guy bought me a drink, and he said, I saw the show. I was like, oh, thank you. Wasn't it great, all the comments? He goes, no, I'm talking about Funny Gay Males. I saw you 20 years ago. I still pee in my pants to me. I'm like, oh, my God.
Is it aside from me, is it a lineage that keeps giving back to you, that people keep mentioning, either that you opened a door for them or you just got them through a difficult time?
Both. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I know that Bob got, I came in later, but I know that Bob from Funny Gay Males, but also from his first book, Openly Bob, that he would get letters from people that said, hey, I read this book when I was, 18, and it totally made me realize that my life didn't have to be awful, and that I could laugh. And I think that when the three of them first started, in particular, that really was helpful to people. And to parents too. I think for like straight people, like I have talked to a couple of parents who said, "Oh, I went to see that. It made me so happy for my child that they were going to."
It wasn't so bleak.
Yeah.
Jaffe, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say that, about 10 years ago, myself and Michael Zam, who was also Bob Smith's partner.
Yep. I'm Bob's partner.
In the last 10 years of his life, maybe?
More. Yeah.
11, 12.
Well, Bob had ALS for 12 years, and they started dating before that. So.
Yeah. But anyway, Michael Zam and I wrote a screenplay called Best Actress about Betty Davis and Joan Crawford.
I read a draft of that. It was so funny.
Yeah, and now it's very different than what I've been doing, but would I've even thought to write that if I hadn't watched the movie 1,000 times with Bob and Danny, and memorized every moment of it, and watched Danny do his Betty Davis imitation, would I even have taken an interest in that? Because so that, in a way, that's my lineage. Is that
for people who don't know, that ultimately became Feud.
Right.
Feud, yeah.
Which was so. Was that a good experience for you? That whole thing?
Was it a good? Was it? Oh, those are two questions. Was it a good experience? Yes. Was the whole thing a good experience? Not really. It was mostly a good experience. I mean, it was great to write it because we wrote the script, and I'd gone through a mental breakdown. I just wanted to write something funny that I was interested in. I had no idea that Ryan Murphy, of all people, would want to produce it or make a TV show of it. I just I did what I did when I started with Funny Gay Males. I just did what I wanted to do, and somehow or another, it worked. So like my philosophy is every 20 years something wonderful happens in show business. You know.
Well, but I also, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong. I remember one of the first scripts of yours. I don't know if it was the first script of yours I read. Was it Hidden Runway? What was it?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Sure. Chris Livingston.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I said, wow, he's so smart. He's such a great writer.
Yeah, both of you are. I love Hidden Runway. I love that. Yeah. Hidden
That
Runway.
was a lot of fun, you know. And I like.
Yeah, was that a good experience?
Yeah, that was a wonderful experience because I taught myself screenwriting essentially.
Yeah.
You know, I you know some guy came up to me and said, let's write a screenplay together. We had the money to produce it. I was given this amazing opportunity to make a movie. I could write pretty much whatever I want. I just had to please the director. And I wrote a screenplay about a gay Jewish guy who helps an Italian guy how to write a screenplay.
Right.
So it was pure autobiography, and I just had a lot of, and I realized the great thing about writing a screenplay is that you can just keep making it better and better and better. You can keep refining it, keep
like your stand-up act.
Yeah.
You know, you learned the art of rewrite. So you're primarily writing now. Are you saying you're not performing?
No, I really prefer to keep the fact that I'm funny very private.
Well, you've done a good job during the show.
I'm like Judy Garland. I'm funny for me. You know, I don't sing for anybody. I sing for me. I'm like Judy Garland. I could go on singing. You know, it just for me it became a burden to have to be funny in public.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to describe. I just, you know, at a certain point, I think I gotta grow. I needed to take an interest in something other than myself.
Yeah, that's a problem. I will admit that. And also, I think that, you know, because you have the writing skill, you can also really channel that into your characters.
Yeah, because I was such a weird kid. I would never go outside, so I sat inside and did my homework. You know, so I'm the reason I'm a writer is because I can sit on my fat ass for days on end without going outside and not miss it. So there's something about writing that it goes along with my lifestyle. I don't have to go out at night anymore.
Good. Yeah.
Danny, now you're obviously, now we've plugged the duplex a million times, but so are you still? Is that what it is? It's mostly still performing and hosting.
I do it every Wednesday. It'll come back when this is over. And plus, I've been an actor. I auditioned for 2 little theater companies for the one-act play festivals they had, and I got cast. I was shocked to shit because the first audition I went on, a friend of mine who's a comic said, "Oh, I'm directing a play for a theater company out in Brooklyn, a one-act play festival. They're looking for actors. Go and audition." I said, "I don't have a photo and resume, and I have no monologue." He goes, "Just go and audition. Do your comedy." So I did my comedy. You heard crickets. Meep, beep, meep, beep, meep.
That's a monologue, though.
No one laughed at anything. I thought, I blew this. I wound up getting a great part in the play, playing a blind guy. I was amazed. I got it. And since then, I've been acting in these 2 theater companies. One's called the Gallery Players in Brooklyn. The other one's called Manhattan Repertory Theater. Oh, Gallery Players is very popular. And I'm a regular actor there for their one-act play festivals. And that's what I've been doing, that and the duplex. But everything's on hold right now. Everything's on hold.
Well, obviously.
And Danny McWilliams and the Miracle Worker.
Yeah. It's a one-man show.
Water has a name.
Doing both parts. Eddie, we talked about when Judy Gold was on that you had helped her with her book, which of course you would think I'd have a copy of it here, but yes, I can say that.
Yeah, that was one of the things that was great about that is she asked me to do it, and you know, I've known Judy a long time, and we were both very close with Bob, and it actually was a really great experience. We worked really well together. And so, you know, we're hoping that we can do some other project going forward. Right now, she's out and about trying to, you know.
Yep, she's in Provincetown right now.
Promote the book, mostly. And also, you know, Bob and I had written this screenplay, like a first draft of it, that we thought was really commercial and really fun. And so I've talked to Judy about maybe we should, you know, that would be a great thing if we could finish the screenplay that
that would be amazing.
On.
And I do have the book cover here. Yes, I can do that.
Oh,
so
good, yes.
let's just plug that as well.
Plug it.
What else are you working on, Eddie?
Well, after I did my first book of comic essays, they wanted me to do another one, and I sort of like, I want to write more about myself, and I wrote, the 10 most interesting stories I had in my back pocket, and I didn't want to write like a B-level follow-up book, which I've seen so many people do. And I also am very wary about people writing, especially more than one memoir.
Right.
It's like you really have to have an interesting life to do that. So I had this idea for a novel that I've been working on and off for a very long time, that Bob was really encouraging. And I think it's really smart and really, really compelling. It's not comedic, although some characters end up coming out a little funny, but it's not comedic, which is really, it's fun for me because it's just different, and it's it doesn't have to all be funny because life isn't all funny. And I'm really enjoying that. I've gotten some good feedback from it when I've done readings of the work in progress, and hopefully I'll finish that sometime before I'm 85.
Well, you've got a little bit of time on your hands right now. How are each of you doing during the pandemic? Jaffe, how are you doing? Well, you're alone and you're sitting home and writing. What are you
I'm going through a wonderful period of my life right now. I've got interesting work to do. I don't have to leave the house if I don't want to. How am I doing? I think I'm doing kind of okay. I'm doing pretty good. I'm learning how to cook for myself because all the diners are closed.
Sure.
I have to make my own scrambled eggs now. It's I got another dog. To keep me company. I can't complain. I do get upset about what's going on in the world, though. I live in Jamaica, Queens now, which is like a mile away from Elmhurst Hospital. So we went through all that horror where, there's ambulances going down the street. No one's allowed out at 8 o'clock. It was just, I felt like I was in the Warsaw Ghetto. It was really scary for a while. But now, thank God, New York has acted sensibly, and we've brought the thing under control. And, if I wear my mask and don't spit on anybody. I can pretty much get by day to day, but I'm just really heartbroken for what people are going through.
Yes, indeed.
Right.
In terms of sickness and in terms of the workers. I love every day people, bang pots out the window for the essential workers.
I did every night at 7.
I just got burst into tears. Danny.
I did. I would cry out my back window when they cry at 7 o'clock. Yes, they stopped. No one's doing it anymore now. But I think when the fall comes, they'll be doing it again. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
They won't have to.
That would be lovely, but coming into flu season, I just keep telling people, remember, it's going to get hard. So you have to be vigilant.
Yes.
Do you guys all stay in touch?
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
Good to see you. I haven't seen you physically, since it started. But
Right.
We do text, email, whatever the hell we do with each other. Yes, we do. We always do.
Let's have another dinner. As long as you mentioned, why don't we get together for dinner again?
I would love that. We can still do it. Come on.
I never had my housewarming party. I could set it up.
I know.
You can meet the dog.
What's that?
You can meet the dog. Go out there.
Yeah.
Eddie, how are you doing? I didn't even ask.
I'm okay. I mean, the pandemic is what it is, and you do our best to stay safe and to be kind to people. And it's a little, luckily my husband and I get along very well because we live in a very small apartment. It's like 500 square feet.
And you're around each other constantly.
Yeah, he works from home mostly also. So, but we get along very well. But we have pets, and I take the dog out every day for a few hours, and that's a godsend. The only thing is, I think the situation just magnifies the political terror that's happening now.
Right.
And it's easy to feel helpless, and, I remember when Trump got elected, you know, even that morning, Hillary was expected to win by like 90%. And then, you know, we all, I know Jaffe and, you know, and Danny as well, like crashed after that happened. And I just am like, what happens if he gets reelected? What are we going to be like?
Right.
So I'm trying to brace myself for that possibility, but also to, you know, trying not to hate people.
Right.
You know, the thing is, like, you know, okay,
I don't even try anymore. I just fucking hate those fuckers.
But the thing is, yeah, I agree. It's that's my first impulse. But at the same time, no matter what happens, the other half of the country is still going to be here.
Right.
And we can't not try to figure this out. We don't really have that luxury of letting this rift continue. And I have no idea how to bridge it, because it just seems so much more than a difference of opinion. It seems like a complete
ideological
question of people's, you know, division in kindness, a division in logic, and a division in science, a division in morals. Yeah.
Do you guys find though that you want, you know, I start out like cursing these fuckers out, and at some point the sheer absurdity of the extent of this man's craziness, I sometimes I burst into hysterical laughter. You know, that there is a level at which all this horror becomes
theater of the absurd.
Theater of the absurd. Like,
yeah,
but it's the absolute worst fucking president, the absolute worst person who could be president, who's horrible in every way imaginable. And meanwhile, and these hysterical memes, I mean, the kind of comedy that comes out of, you know, out of this is just hilarious. Like,
yeah, if you were performing now, would you? I mean, is this something that you would feel free to tackle?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
because I know so many people feel scared to tackle it because people are so violent.
Yes, they are. I tackle it at the duplex occasionally, but not too much.
On Wednesday nights, by the way, when they come back.
Say it again. What's that? What was that, Billy? What?
That Wednesday nights when they come back. Wednesday nights.
When they come back, yes. I always made folk jokes about him. Not too much, because nobody really wants to hear his name. I know, like.
Well, you're also performing at the duplex, so you do have an audience that's probably mostly on your side.
Oh, mostly. When he got elected, I went off in a goddamn tirade that everyone was on the floor howling, and they said,
I find that so hard to believe, Danny.
Say that again. Oh,
I find it so hard to believe. It's so unlike you.
I wish I had recorded it. I just went off, and people were howling. So yes, they're on my side. But in other clubs, they do it, and people, that's my president, don't talk like that. All that crap, you know, and they walk out, whatever. So I'm lucky at the duplex because they're all on my side. But I would be careful because people are just crazy.
Speaking of recording, before we just wrap, speaking of recording, did you guys record shows when you were like original cast, like with Bob back in the day? How much did you record?
You mean on Decca Records? Did we have a contract?
On wax cylinder.
I just recorded myself, and sometimes Bob and Jaffe as well. But we don't have any records out or anything like that.
But did you for yourself? Do you have videotapes of like a full show for yourself?
Oh, sure, I do.
I have videotapes of sets that we did. I don't know if I have one. I have some DVDs of the four of us with individual sets from the four of us that we sent out for promo stuff. Billy, send me your address. I think I have some left that I could send.
Okay. Yeah, definitely.
Actually, there's some on YouTube.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'll send you the link.
Because I'm just for people watching, I think that if they didn't see it, I think there was really, there was a spirit, and I think it's a good way to end. Is that it was a moment in time that you really did capture. It's so silly to say because it's overused so much, but it was lightning in a bottle. That it was the right people at a very specific time. That I don't know 5 years earlier if it would have caught on. 5 years later, what would have happened? It was just perfection. And not only do I think you guys, all of you, did a service for the gay community, I think you did a service for entertainment in general, because it gave people permission to laugh in a time that was scary. Gay people were coming out and it was a scary time,
Yeah.
and you normalized it. And isn't that funny that you would not think any of us here are normal, and yet you really normalized it and gave people permission to laugh and to smile, and as Eddie said, to be kind.
Yeah, two of the comments at the duplex. One went on
Wednesday
O'Brien, the
night.
other one went on Stephen Colbert. So not
Really?
yeah, not because they came to the duplex, but they are gay comics, and the duplex was one of their places they would perform a lot, because I always gave them good time. And some of them been on Stephen Colbert. One was on Jimmy Fallon. So yeah, they're getting up there.
And again, who would have thought that many years ago that gay comics would just be showing up in it, and being gay isn't necessarily an issue or the shtick. It was, they just happened to be gay.
Yeah.
Well, I remember when we were performing, you could see the world changing in those years, like the early 90s. It's like when we started out, kids didn't come out in high school, but by the time we finished, we had like the height, like the gay club, the gay ally, from Worcester, Massachusetts, come see our show in Boston. I was like, you're in high school and you're coming out of the cloud. I mean, it was just.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, just to see how much it changed, and it's really. I think about all the shitty things that have happened in the world in the past 20, 30 years. I have to remind myself that homophobia is the lessening of homophobia was one of the really good things that have happened in the past 20, 30 years.
Absolutely. And I think you all played a big part in that. So I want to thank you. Guys, we got to end, but it has been so great. I mean, you all know, first off, I've been in touch with you individually, but when I started doing this, I said, this is something I really wanted to do because I think it's important. And I just love you all individually. I miss being able to just sit and laugh with my friends. And if this show kind of is virtually able to do that, then that's a good thing.
Thank you. I love
thanks
it.
so much for
Thank
having
you
us.
for thinking of us, Billy. And Jaffe and Eddie, I miss both of you so much.
Let's get together. Let's
We're gonna have a 6-foot apart dinner. That's all.
All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for doing the show. I really appreciate
Thank
it.
you,
I will
Billy.
talk to you all again soon. Eddie, Danny, and Jaffe. Funny
Bye,
Game Meals
baby.
and Bob Smith in Absentia. Thank you all for doing the show. I appreciate it.
baby.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you for watching Billy Masters Live. This was Funny Gay Males. And Tuesday we have Buck Angel. So what can I tell you? Have a good weekend. Be kind to each other. And just remember, if we're here, we're live. Take care, everyone. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye. Rim.